So it's starting to record now. So just let me know. Okay. Where was I? So toolkit, we're going to go over all those things, and then we're going to do 2 quick demos on prototyping, which we'll cover what that means too. And then finally, how you can get started with UX at UMD and beyond when you step out into the real world and go into the industry of UX. So these are our speakers for today. Hi, I'm Ash. I'm the president for AIGA this year, and I study graphic design and neurobiology, and I'm a senior.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yi. I'm a graphic design and computer science student, and I'm the treasurer of AIGA this year.
Sweet. So what does UX mean? What does UI mean? It can get very confusing once you start researching and you see all of these sort of names come at you. So UX stands for user experience. That's this big bubble here. And it's a wide range of topics. It covers quite a lot of stuff. And it basically just focuses on people that use technology or design, how to better understand them and design the tools that would best suit them. So that involves a lot of things. So on the outskirts here, there's human-computer interaction, which is sort of like the hard science between how a user and the computer kind of interact. That's really something I'm interested in, and I like the neuro side of it and how our brains start to like melt if we're on Instagram too much and just scrolling and scrolling. Those are things that I'm interested in. There's also these other things like sound design, human factor, content, software architecture. We got a question a little while ago about programming and coding and how that fits into UX. So that goes into like front-end development, software architecture. You're usually like communicating with developers if you're in user experience design, and it's good to have like a working knowledge of programming before going in. Yi can answer a couple more questions about computer science related stuff. I am very beginner stages of that. But here, let's get into the meat of what user experience design goes into. So there's this other term in the middle here, UI, which stands for user interface. This is basically what you interact with. So it's the screen that's in front of us all now. The sort of layout of Zoom can be considered interface, how you see me, how you see this presentation, and all the people in this meeting. You can see if they're muted or not. That all falls under UI. If you look at your phone, every app has an interface, and that's what UI designers create. And there's a part of it that's static, that doesn't move. And that's just the design part of it. That's just the graphic design. And that's where this like orange bubble of visual design falls. But then there's also like when you click a button, it goes somewhere. So that's the interaction design part of it. And that's the simplest example I can think of. But that's really how this leads to something. Let me know if that makes sense. That's like a crash course example or explanation of user experience, but basically user experience is like the big thing and UI is a very like small, important part of this huge, huge monster of the industry. Here's one more sort of other schematic to understanding. And this, I like how it's sort of, how it's focused on like what are the basic tools you have to do. So in communication, there's branding, technical communication, content management. If you're interested in business or entrepreneurship, there's definitely a spot in UX for you. There's definitely a business side of it too. Then there's the understanding side, and this is where design thinking, usability research, understanding users and humans, and being on that social science or psychology, sociology side really helps. Then those people get to talk to people in interaction design, visual design. This is sort of like how all of those sort of soft things end up looking. And these three places really have to communicate really well, and that's how you get a really good product at the end. Hopefully that makes sense. We're going to go specifically into interaction design and visual design in this presentation, but we'll give you the resources if you're interested in these other places, how to get started there. So we understood not everybody is a visual designer here or a graphic designer, and some people are more interested in like the design thinking side or the research side or the business side. So there's really a spot for everybody in this huge industry. So that's very cool. And it's an emerging industry. So if you need a job, this is a great place to start. Let's move on. So this is sort of a repository of information that you can come back to when we share the slides. So there's lots of places where you can learn further and beyond, taking a class at school. And that's YouTube. YouTube has a lot of great tutorials. If you go to the company websites of each of these like software, they all have tutorials on how to use them. And then of course there's things like LinkedIn Learning. That's if you want to get deeper into specific things. If you want to learn the principles of UX design, there's these great places. UX Collective and Medium are both great for articles that are written by your peers. The Nielsen Norman Group is kind of like a hardcore UX design, like very, very intensive sort of place to go for information. This guy, he's like really important in graphic design and UX design. He sort of generated the field of it, of user experience. So this is where you want to go if you want to learn from the master. Icons and UI kits, we'll go into what that means a little bit more, but these are all free places to get images to use in your design. So you don't have to think about like creating an icon from scratch. You can just find a website that already has them for you, and you can just focus on the core of your design. Mockups we'll talk about a little bit later too, but mockups are a professional way to show your design. And it's like taking your design and copy pasting it onto like an iPhone or a website and showing how it'll look if it was, used in the real world. I'm gonna pause here to look at the chat to see what questions we have. Ooh, okay. Do you guys learn UI UX in the graphic design concentration at all? Yes, we do. So I'll get into this at the end of the presentation, but we do have a class called Interaction Design that you can take. And I'll get into that more. To Yi, you have a question. As a comp sci double major, how much time do you dedicate with code more often than design in your projects? Oh,
yeah. So like if you're, yeah, I do. Sorry.
Okay, let me read.
Yeah. So most of the time when you're doing UI UX, it's actually about design. It's not about like coding. But if you're asking for like a computer science project, then like I would say like none of them is about design.
So I guess my question is like, there's a new role that I'm looking at is UX engineering, and this is like completely new to me. I just wanted to know if you have any experience and like how you balance between like, okay, I'm gonna like maybe 30 minutes of design and I'm gonna do the rest of the code myself, or would you rather just pass it on to someone who's more advanced?
I would say just pass it to someone who's more advanced, because like you know something about this field, so you can communicate with her or communicate with him for those part. However, you should focus on like only one part if you are working on those projects. Yeah.
Thanks, Yi. Feel free to keep dropping questions in the chat, and we'll look at them over the course of this workshop. So now we're going to get into something called prototyping. And if you remember from that big Venn diagram, this is where interaction design and visual design kind of meet. This is where you can test out how something looks before the computer science or the programmers come and add function. So you can kind of like do a mock-up of how something is going to look. And there's a lot of products out there that are competing sort of in this field of prototyping. So these are all companies that have prototyping software. And we're going to talk about Figma and Adobe XD. So Figma Sketch and Vision, they're all industry standards. They're all they have kind of a harsh learning curve, but once you learn them, you kind of can switch between the three and you'll be good. I have to say Figma allows for collaboration. Some of these other ones do, like Adobe XD, and it's free if you have a student account. So you can create a Figma account right now with your UMD ID. Same with Adobe XD, because we're UMD students and we get the Creative Cloud or Creative Suite for free. Adobe XD is included, and these are all web apps that you can download. It's easy and powerful, and this one is great for beginners. Yi's going to talk about that a little bit more in the next part of this presentation. Sketch is also an industry standard. It's not free and it's only for Mac users, but it's been around for a long time, and it kind of set the precedent for like prototyping software, and it's really powerful, and you can integrate it with other softwares. InVision is also another good one that kind of started it all. And you can integrate it with Photoshop and Sketch, so you can create like a full design suite in this one little place. But it's also not free unless you can sort of negotiate a license. A lot of these companies, you can kind of negotiate a license and get your stuff for free. So now we're going to talk about Figma, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let me, sorry. That's a sneak peek into our presentation. So Figma works in the cloud. So you need the internet to collaborate with Figma. Let me just see. So this is sort of the website version. I'm going to use the desktop version. Can everybody see this? Just give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, cool. So this is basically what Figma is. It's kind of an intimidating platform to start out with, but we'll take you through all of these things, what they mean, and how to sort of keep yourself sane while working with a lot of layers. So there's a lot of possibilities here. You can create low or high fidelity wireframes. Low fidelity means that it's very rough. It's a very like low fidelity or rough sketch of what something is going to look like. High fidelity means it looks almost exactly like how a user is going to see it. It just doesn't have that function that the programmers have added to it yet. You can do a lot of things here. You can kind of treat it like an Illustrator or like a designing area. So you can create mood boards, case studies, lots of ways of showing information. You can give direct feedback, and you can make developers' lives easier by directly exporting code from Figma. And I'll show you how to do that. So the very first thing is creating frames. A frame is the sort of equivalent of an artboard, but unlike an artboard, you can nest frames within it. So here is the frame tool, and you can sort of just click and drag it like this. So, and then you can easily sort of change the size and dimension of it. And if you want, you can create another frame, place it inside, and then you have a nested frame. And that really helps out when you're designing large things with a lot of moving parts. But let's say you wanted to design something that's like very usable in the real world. So let me click the frame tool again. And here you can see all of these templates come out when you click on that frame tool. So for example, a phone, if I wanted to create like an iPhone, this is the right dimensions, and I can easily start designing based on this without having to go and look up what the iPhone dimensions are, which is really cool. And then you can also do a bunch. So if you wanted to change this to something else, here are all of them. So you can change it to a different type of phone, iPad, Surface, all kinds of sort of web dimensions. And then there's also these like traditional design ones for like Twitter posts or Instagram posts or something like that. So you can also design things that aren't necessarily for interaction design here. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if there's any questions on that. Next, a really cool part of Figma is collaboration. Yi, can you hop on this Figma file, hopefully. Let's see.
Yeah, sure.
Sweet. Yeah.
Can you send me the link?
Yeah. Wait. I'll place it in the chat. So if anybody else has a Figma file, has a Figma account already, you can come join us.
Thank you.
So the power of collaboration is pretty key. You can work with people that are sort of on the other side of the world. Oh, yay. Okay, Yi's, lots of people are here. Okay, so you can see them all popping up here. Do you want to come to this like collaboration place? Hello, I'll say hello, guys. Yeah, and now you can see these sort of arrows pop up, and those are all the people that are working on the same file as you. And they can go in and edit anything if they have editing access. So this means that if you are working in the United States, then maybe a developer is working on the other side of the world. You guys can work on the same thing and they can export code from here and you can basically work with anybody. It's really diversifying and it's inclusive and it's pretty cool for a design tool to have this much design collaboration capability. Like, if you tried to do this with Illustrator, it would probably crash like immediately. Some other design tools also have this. So next, we're gonna move on. Let me see the chat. You guys got the chat. Next, we're gonna move on to commenting. This is also part of collaboration. So you can see here that this component is a little bit off. So you want to let your designer know that they should move it back. I mean, without doing it yourself. So this button here on this top menu is the comment button. And you can say like, move to the left, the line. And comments kind of show up here. So if you want to get out of comments mode, then you can click on the arrow again and it brings you back to the design mode. If you want to go back to comments, you can see here, there's a comment right here. So I'm going to resolve it until, yeah. So that's sort of basics. Let's get into a little bit more, more capability with Figma. So there's something here called pages. You can keep adding pages like this, but let me delete those. This is a good way to keep everything organized in your Figma file, and it kind of keeps you from going crazy. So we're going to talk about grids now. Grids are important. Obviously, if you've taken any art classes, you know about like 3-column grids and how there's like that golden ratio of things being in a 3-column grid. You can, on this right side panel, this is where all the grids are housed, or all of your sort of design capabilities are. And this part is how you can do the grid. So here's the grid. It's kind of ugly and maybe not as helpful. So you can change the sizing of it to be more helpful to whatever you're designing. So you can change the size that way. You can change the color of the lines as well. Maybe it's orange. Cool. You can delete the grid if you want or hide it. So the eyeball hides the grid and the minus button deletes it. This is kind of more important, grids are, when you get into interaction design, because grids allow you to have responsive design, which means you can go easily from phone to desktop for, say, like a website without sort of sacrificing the quality or appearance of your design. If you take a front-end development class like CMSC 122, they'll teach you things like that. There's also a design class that goes a little bit into it, but let's see. So for an iPhone, let's add a grid, but I don't want it to be a grid. I want it to be just columns. So here you can click on the option to add columns, and then you can determine the number of columns you want. Let's say I want 4 columns. And then if you want a slightly smaller gutter, which is the space between, you can alter the size of it. It's kind of hard to do. So that's too big. So let's go back to 20. This is really great for responsive design. You might be more familiar with desktops with like a 12 column grid. Let's add that once again, columns, and then 12. So this lets you sort of keep everything within the bounds. Let's say if you want to add a shape here, like, oh, I only want it to be this big. And this helps you design things. Say I want it to go just that far, that are going to look organized, symmetrical, and going to make life easier for your user because they don't have to think about like crazy sort of grid changes or something like that. So that is how you make grids on Figma. Now I'm going to go into styling. So these are some, this is sort of how you can create like what an actual app is going to look like in Figma. I borrowed these from a UI kit, which I'll show you at the end. So let's do basic design. So this is like a rating screen on a mobile app, but this green is really sort of harshing my design style with this light blue. So I want to change it. And I can change one color like this in the fill area. I can make it blue. However, this green is still there. These greens are all still here. I don't like that. So instead, what I'll do is selection colors, and this selects everything on your screen that is that color, which is really cool. I had to remove that styling. So now when I hit this, it changed everything on this screen. It didn't change these. Sorry about that. So if I wanted to do the same thing, then I could, change it to this blue color. And this is a slightly different green, so that's why it didn't work. But yeah, that's how you change colors. You can also do changing the text. So there's this text opportunity here to change the font. Inter or Roboto are pretty common in interaction design. They're like nice, simple sans serif fonts. There's a lot of fonts here. A drawback is it doesn't show you the preview, so you kind of have to know what the font is going to look like. Okay, there's a lot of fonts here. So I changed it to Roboto. It wasn't that big of a difference, but yeah. You can also make the line weight different, so you can make it thin. Doesn't look that good, so I'll change it back. Make the size different. I have standard sizes here. Maybe that's better. We'll know. So that's pretty much covering all the styling. You can also add an outline to things, and that's covered in stroke, which looks terrible because everything was selected. But yeah, so now you've added an outline, something like that. So these are pretty simple things to do in Figma. Next, I'm going to go into styling and styling effects. So buttons have styling in them sometimes to show that they're not flat. It sometimes helps users if something is sort of jumping out at you and you can tell that it has function. So you might not be able to tell with this flat icon. So let's add, let's say, and these are where the effects are housed. Let's add a drop shadow. And that kind of makes it look like it's jumping out. This is sort of a tangent, but if you read up on design trends, it's kind of going away to add shadows and things like that, just because of how design trends go. But that's something you have to, as a designer, keep up with. You can read articles, you can engage with your peers just to find out how things are going, see how other apps are doing it, basically. That's sort of unrelated. If you wanted a different effect, not a drop shadow, you can change it to, let's say, a layer blur. This is cool if you're trying to like hide a feature that maybe someone doesn't have access to yet. You can change the level of blur to be extremely blurry, not blurry at all, kind of like that. So those are all the different effects that you can do. There's a couple more, which don't get used too much. So for example, there's like inner shadow. Again, this is sort of falling out of the trend because it's like not as flat. There's also background blur. There's no background here, so you can't really see the blur. So that's overall effects in styling. One more thing that isn't really styling, but it's a cool feature, if you click on these things, you can see this like pink stuff come up, and that determines spacing and size and position of these sort of grouped elements, and you can easily change the positioning. So let's say if that's a good amount of positioning, you can alter that. You can also alter it this way to remove positioning. And you can also reposition the whole thing. So we got 2 more things coming up. Let me know if there's any questions. You can answer those. Let's see, let's now go into exporting. So I'm kind of on the tail end of this Figma demonstration. Yi's going to go into it with XD, but let's talk about exporting, which is going to help out developers mostly. So this is the export button. You can export whole screens or you can export individual things. So let's say a developer really needs this image, then they can export it in this little corner here, and they can export it as a PNG file. Usually they'll do it as an SVG file and export, and then you can just pull up where you want it to go and then save it, which is pretty cool. You can also export the code and the styling. So that is in this top area. There's this thing called inspect, and you can inspect all of the coding that goes into this. So if they wanted the dimensions of what you're working with, they can copy these, like the width, the height, top left. If they wanted the colors, let's say in the background, they can copy the CSS of all of this. They can copy individual components. They can really do a lot. So this is really helpful for working with developers. All right. Next up is prototyping and interaction. I'm going to introduce this briefly, but Yi is going to go into it a lot more. So we're leaving the field of visual design now, and we're getting into the field of interaction design. So this is both a part of UI or user interface design, but these are kind of 2 different areas within it. So interaction is just how things are going to move around in your app. So let's say we're on, the post side of this page. So that's highlighted with this bar. And if you want to go into the next page, you can add prototyping, or you can add interaction if you go into prototype, and you can see these arrows come up. I've left the interaction here, but let's add interaction. So I want photos to go to this photo screen. So simply click and drag from the starting point to the ending point, and that'll give the interaction to you. I'll show you how you can see if it worked. Let me just add for friends. Friends can go to not this one, but this one. And it can get pretty crazy when you're looking at huge sort of types of interaction. So let's see what that looked like right off the bat. And to play your interaction, let's see, I want it on an iPhone with a gold. No, I like midnight green. I don't know. Let's play it. This might take a second to load. All right, so we're on the post screen now, and if I click on photos, it takes me to the photo screen. If I click on friends, it takes me to the friends screen. And if I go back to photos or posts, it goes back to the original screen. So this is the very basic form of interaction in prototyping. So that's just a click, or that's just a quick tap that gets you there. But I want to do something a little bit different. So if you want to change how something interacts, like if you don't want to just tap it, if you want to do something else, you can click on this arrow to change the nature of the interaction. And this sort of pop-up comes up. And right now it's set to on tap. That's the default. But maybe I want it to be on drag. So let's see what that looks like. So now I can click on photos and drag it, and then the photo screen comes up. And then I didn't change the interaction for these, so I just hit that. So if I click something and it doesn't have that interaction, it shows me this blue square, which means that's where the interaction is. So I can drag it, and that should work. So you can add interaction everywhere. So you can add it to this back button to take you back to the original screen. You can add it pretty much anywhere. as long as it makes sense. And that's where your role as a user experience designer comes in, because you have to know how interactions make sense. You have to understand the logic of them. I'm going to go into one more thing in Figma, which is scrolling. So you can see that this is what you'll see on your screen. This is what you'll see on your screen without scrolling. But you want to read the whole article and you want to scroll through it and you want to see all of these things. So how does that happen? So let me show you on here. So let's play it. Oh, I know what's going to happen. Yeah. You can see this little arrow here. That means this is set to the home screen. So every time you want to show the prototype, it'll start with this. So let me change it to this one. You do that by going to the settings and then changing the starting frame to vertical scrolling works. So now when you start the prototype, okay, so you can see, because this is a long article, I can scroll through all of it, which is pretty cool. However, if I want to do the scrolling, let's say here, all the content is there, but I can't do the scrolling. Let's see, you can't tell, but I'm using the little scroll bar. And that's because the bounding box or the bounding dimensions of the frame is too small. So you can just change that by extending it to the full of your content. And now it should work. You can add overflow behavior and then vertical scrolling. And now that should work. Let's see if it does. Oops. Hopefully it does. Yay, okay, now it works. So that's my sort of overall crash course introduction to Figma. It's a very, very powerful software. You can do a lot with Figma and you can work with a lot of people. So if it seems a little intimidating at first, I completely understand, which is why Yi is going to talk about Adobe XD next. I'm going to stop sharing. Adobe XD is more of like a beginner-friendly sort of version of Figma, so she'll show you all the ins and outs of that. Let me stop. Hello, everybody. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and show you guys how to do Adobe XD demos right here. Okay. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the Adobe XD demo, and I'm going to use this project to show you guys some function that we can use in XD. This group project is credit to Earl and Jasmine, and also me myself. So the first part I'm going to tell you guys is about the responsive resize. So the responsive resize is like, for example, right here, we got pages that is mostly for template or mobile. If we want to change it into something for the website, we want to change like the artboard or the background size of this page. If we change it directly, it will not changes the content of the pages. What can we do? We can select this page, and right here, you can see here, there's a responsive resize button. If you click it, then everything you do to these pages will impact the content directly. If you click on the shift, then it would change back to the one that without turning on the responsive resize. So here's the first one. And the second one is about freedoms, links, and component state. It's really important to give user the freedom. For example, right now, I'm showing you guys the login pages for this app. Like right here, we got sign up and login. We got login pages, we got sign up pages, and we can like link them all together. It's really important that you give user the freedom to have control over this app. For example, right here, we have a go back button for each pages. We can let the user to go from login to sign up or from sign up to login right here. So you need to fulfill your users' expectation for this app so that you can make them enjoy it more. And also about the link. it's similar to what Ash did in Figma. So if we want to link those pages together, we can just go to the prototype right here, and then we click on the button we want to link, and then we just drag, and then they just link together. It's really easy. The second part, which is the most interesting part, I think, is the component state. So component state is a method to make your pages look more like kind of fashion, or make you save your time and make everything look more clean. For example, right here, we got the sign up pages. And if we want to show the user like how to go in the prototype, like step by step, for example, right here, we want to show the user like they can enter their full name, enter their email, enter their password, and then they can sign up. Okay, so everything is like from one to the last one. And we need to do 4 pages in XD in order to fulfill that one function. However, if we use component state, we can change it. For example, right here, I'm going to show you how to improve it. Here we got the original pages without full name, without name, without email, without password. We just need to select this component and we make it into a component by clicking on the plus sign right here, which said make component from selection. Or we can do in the design pages and click on the component plus sign right here, make them component. After we make them into a component, then we got the main component. And here's a really small tips. So right here, we got main component. If we copy paste this main component, oh, I'm sorry. Then we got like another one, which is an instance component. So everything you do in the instance component will not impact the main component. However, what you do in the main component will impact the instance component. Right here, you can see like what I do to the instance will not impact the main. However, what I do to the main, oh, I'm sorry. I think there's something wrong. Ungroup components. So you can ungroup component to make it go back to the original stage. So here, right here, what you do to the main component will impact the instance component, like what you see right here. So if we go back to the component stage, right here we got default state. All we need to do is to add another state. Right here, the plus sign, and click on the new state. We can just name it like fielded. And in the field state, we can change the content of it. Maybe like, for example, I just changed it into my name, like Yi Zheng. Okay, so here we go. We got a filter state with my name and a default state with the full name. The next step is to link them together. Go to the prototype, and then right here, you got interaction. So click on the default stage and add interaction right here. Remember, you need to choose the trigger as tab, and you need to do transition or auto animate. You can choose your destination to the fielded stage right here, and you can make it like is in, is out, whatever you want, and the duration, you can change the durations. Okay, so here we go. If we select the pages and we play it by clicking the play signs right here, after you click it, it will change to what you enter, like it will show you the fielded stage. We can do it to every component that we want. For example, we can do it to the email, we can do it to the password, and we can save our pages. Like, for example, right here, we got 4 pages to complete that one function, but for here, we can complete it by just using this 1 pages. And if you want to make your pages look more fashion, or for example, you wanted to do a website and you wanted to like that your user knows that this is a button. So you want to show the user that, okay, when your mouse is hover on this button, the color of it will change. So what should we do? We just select everything we have. We want to make it into a component. We go back to the design we make it into a component. And here is a plus sign again. Click on it and click hover stage. In the hover stage, we can maybe we can change the color. Double click to enter into this component, and we can choose like a state right here. We can also change the content. So after this, go to the prototype, go to default stage, and it will like directly have this interaction for you. So it's hover, auto animate, hover stage, and everything is being set for you. And let's see what it will show you. Okay, so when your mouse is moving on this button, the color will change. If you change the content of it, the content will change too. That is how we play with the hover stage in the component stage. And right here, I'm going to show you guys how to use the horizontal scrolling. For example, right here, you can see like, okay, we can scroll from left to right or from right to the left, and we can go on to like the quiz or something like that. How we do it, really simple. Right here, select every card that you want to make them scrollable, go back to the design, and click on the horizontal scroll button right here, and then you got it. Let's see how it shows. Okay, so here's something wrong. So we need some spaces right here because we wanted to make the card stay on the center. How to do it? Here's the tips. So double click to go into the scrolling stats. Right here, create a rectangle, by maybe like this big. And then we can move it right here to make the merging have some spaces. And we can make it invisible. And then here we go. This time, what you can see is that everything is being played in the order, in the position that we want. So because we have enough space right here. And we can also imply that, like, for example, we can have the vertical, we can have horizontal, and we can have vertical inside of horizontal, or like the other way. For example, right here, we can see how we can have those chat boxes scrolling down vertically, and we can have it scrolling horizontally. We can combine them together, which is really, really powerful. And the next one is the repeat grid. So for example, right here, we got like a quiz, and we wanted to use these boxes again and again in this pages, in this card. How should we do it? We don't need to copy paste. It's a waste of our time. So we just directly click on the repeat grid right here. And then we can have as many as we want by dragging the green button. We can have whatever we want. And for example, right now we just need 4. So we have it here. And there's something really interesting is that if we want to place picture inside those boxes, we can place it one by one, like dragging it place here, dragging it place here. However, we can also do something like select all the graphics right here and then drag it and place it. It will just directly apply to all the boxes that we have. And we can even double click and get into the first one and control one of the elements that we have inside this repeat grid. The second one is the tips. So right here, you can see, like, for example, when you are designing something, you might want to know the certain number, like the certain pixel it have between different boxes, like different contents. So right here, you just click the one that you want to know and click the keyboard option for Mac or Windows or Alt for Windows. So right now I'm clicking option because I'm using a Mac. And now you can see those numbers, like what is the spacing between the text and the scale is 40, and what is the space between it? It's like 29. So we can know that, okay, this spacing is much more smaller than spacing between those two, and then we can change it. Also, there's one thing really important is that you remember to log items. For example, right here, if you want to select those content and you select it, however, you will like firstly move the background white car. In this case, you can like click them all together and then lock it by right click right here. There's a lock. After you lock it, like you can select all you want, like just like dragging it, and you can like maybe lock this part too. So even out in fact each other. And if there's something else, you can just like lock them like separately. And that's all you have. Also, you can do, just like Figma, you can do collaborations right here. So you can add people by adding their email and enable the co-editing so you can see each other mouse and their selection in the Adobe. Yeah, and that's all. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Yi. I learned a lot from that tutorial the first time I saw it, which was super cool. So I'm going to share the remaining slides that we have, which are going to go into the UX industry and how you can sort of break into it. Hopefully everybody can still see this, probably. Okay, so UX is present and alive at UMD. There's a lot of different places where you can get involved with UX. If you want to do more academic stuff, there's the Academy for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which teaches a lot of classes called IDEA. And there's one specifically offered next semester called Intro to UI UX Design. And you don't need to be in that major. You don't need any experience or prerequisites. You can join in and learn in depth for one whole semester what UI UX design basically is. And they have a lot of other classes too, like design thinking or ethical design, things like that. If you're in the design program as a senior or a junior, you can take this elective called Art 457, which is specifically about interaction design. There's also a Master's of Science in Human Computer Interaction, which is part of the Information Science School. So this is after you graduate from undergrad. If you want to learn further about this human side of it, then you can apply to this program. Other than academic stuff, there's also a lot of cool things to do. There's this Adobe Creative Jam, which the first one was last spring, and then I think there's going to be a virtual one in spring 2021, which is going to be like learning all about Adobe XD and then practicing those skills. And I think Yi can tell you a little bit more about that. There's also UX Terps, which is a club on campus specifically about UX. It's housed in the HCI program, and they host something called Terps Makeathon. Terps Makeathon is a hackathon where you spend like 24 hours with a small team building a product as fast as you can, learn a lot of skills, and then compete for prizes. This one's really special because Yi's team with Yi and Earl won the challenge at Terps Makeathon last year. So yay, that was super cool. And then there's also 2 more hackathons, which are more CS based, but if you join the organizing teams, then you can participate in a little bit of UX design too. I was a part of Technica this year and I got to work on the platform we had to build. So I built things like the schedule site and things like that, which was super cool. And you get to sort of have an in with big tech places if you end up wanting to work there. So these are all the spots on campus where you can find UX. And then this is sort of beyond that once you get into industry, all the different job titles you can have based on your interests. So if you liked what we did today, you're interested in designing and creating those interactions, you might want to apply to a UI designer field. And you can focus on the interaction or the design, the visual design side. You can also be an overall user experience designer. And this means you need a good foundation in the psychology, the sociology, research, things like that. So you can apply the best ways to kind of help people use your products and use it and communicate with all of these other places. There's also user experience architects. That involves a little bit of the business side along with strategists. And then if you want to focus more on the scientific side, there's user experience researchers. If you just want to interview people all day, that is super cool too. Customer user experience design, that goes into the business side. Experience design also goes into sort of the business side. You do a little bit of everything. And this isn't even all the jobs that are out there. There's so many jobs. If you go on LinkedIn or any job board, you can see all of these different things come up. And I would recommend taking a really good look at the requirements and practicing those skills starting now. If you guys are freshmen, especially, or sophomores, you're kind of in those early years. But if you start doing it now, by the time you graduate college, you'll have about 3 or 4 years of experience. And that would be really, really helpful for you for finding a job right out of college. This is kind of getting into the job side. We'll do a lot more of this next semester, working on how to find internships, find jobs, things like that. But this has hopefully been a good introduction to user experience design, and then a deeper introduction into prototyping, visual design, and interaction design. So thank you guys for joining us. Let us know if you have any other questions. I'm going to check the chat really soon to see if we have any questions, so drop them in. Join GroupMe and follow us on Instagram to keep updated. This is going to be the last event this semester, but we're going to have a bunch more coming up over winter break and then in the spring semester. So be sure to look out for those. But thank you guys for joining us. Stay on if you have more questions. I'm going to stop sharing and let me know. Thank you guys. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Mika, hey, I'm glad we made your night. Good luck with finals. Yes, good luck with finals, everybody. Hopefully this was a nice sort of break. We're still learning, but it's good learning. Do you need permission to register? Yes, you do. You'll have to ask Professor Rieko Chasey for permission to do that. Yep.
On the spring registration, it's not listed, so I was wondering if this was only for this semester or will it be future semesters?
Yeah, it's only a fall semester class, unfortunately. So yeah, you could supplement it with one of those IDEA classes instead. Will this Zoom recording be emailed? Yes, it will. Yep. Let's see. Is a majority of this covered in the graphic design concentration? I would say the interaction design class kind of goes into it, but most of the design program is focused on traditional graphic design. So this is just a small slice of everything that's covered in that program. So you guys can speak up. We'll be here for like another 10 minutes or so. If you have any more questions or if you want to say hi, I'm going to stop the recording now. So if you want to